Behind the counter of his tiny bookstore in Portland, Oregon, Jay, the proprietor of Maplewood Reads, was cold on a peaceful November afternoon in 2022. The streets outside a man in a dark coat and trousers was silently perusing the store's shelves for more than an hour before his eyes fell upon a battered leather-bound book called The Shadow of the Wolves as the man approached the counter. Maplewood Books had been in Jay's family for generations and was a cornerstone of the neighborhood. Jay shook his head and apologized that one wasn't for sale after giving him barely a glance. My father's favorite was when Jay stated. The man smiled politely, his voice calm and soft. I can pay extra. It's not about the money. Jay shook his head in response. I simply cannot let it go. Jay was unaware that the man in front of him was Keanu Reeves, and that book was the key to a part Keanu had been training for months. The story reflected the life of his character, a broken detective who clings to a book as a last remnant of a loved one he has lost. Keanu nodded in understanding, his smile never going away, and he ran his hand gently over the worn cover of the book. Committing its feel to memory, perhaps one day, he said softly before leaving the store. Part-time employee Emily had watched the exchange from behind a pile of books. She hadn't immediately recognized Keanu, but she was so moved by his quiet admiration for the book that even that evening, after looking through old interviews online, she knew who he was. The following day, she told Jay, "You're kidding," but Emily's conviction was indisputable for days, and Jay couldn't stop thinking about the man in the book. It wasn't just any book. It was a piece of his family's history. A memento of the times his mother read aloud to him in the evenings while they waited for his father to get home from work. A week later, Emily came up to Jay with a suggestion. She had discovered another copy of Shadow of the Wolves. It wasn't the same edition, but it was the same story.
She gave it to Jay wrapped in plain paper and said, "Send it to him," that evening after closing the store. It took Jay a long time to find the appropriate words as he sat by the register and penned a letter. "Keanu, please, some stories aren't meant to be on bookshelves forever, so I've given it a lot of thought. I hope this one provides you something, even if it's not the same copy. I didn't know who you were that day, and I'm not sure it would have changed anything." Jay after Jay sent the book anonymously and without a return address. The hectic holiday season quickly brought him back into the swing of things at the store. However, on Christmas Eve, a small package containing the original leather-bound book with a note inside the cover that said, "Some stories are meant to find their way home," was delivered to the store. Jay didn't need a signature, but that evening he read the book aloud in the shop's silence, just like his mother had done years before. Months later, as spring gave way to summer, the bell above the door jingled once more. Jay noticed Keanu standing in the doorway when he looked up. "I wasn't certain I would return." Keanu acknowledged, entering. "I didn't think I'd see you again," Jay said with a smile as he emerged from behind the counter. Keanu's gaze lingered on the shelves before he turned around, "And I received the present with the heartfelt inscription." After hesitating, Jay inquired as to why that book when she departed. "All I had left of her was that book, which even briefly brought her back." Keanu's visage softened as he stated softly that it was her favorite. Jay nodded, realizing the significance of the loss. He went to the back of the shop and took out a tiny item. "Recently, I discovered a delicately embroidered bookmark with the phrase 'Some stories' inside my father's belongings." Never-ending, Keanu's thumb briefly touched the stitching before he spoke, but when he did, his voice was quiet and appreciative. "Jay, you have no idea what this means." Keanu stopped at the door as he was leaving the store and stated, "She would have liked this place," grinning slightly. The narratives as he closed the store that evening after Keanu departed, his heart full. Jay stood in the stillness and looked at the leather-bound book that was securely placed back on its shelf. It served as a reminder that some stories don't and instead just find their way home.